Time to Die is Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond, and it doesn't just act as a finale for Daniel Craig's era of the franchise, but it also kind of acts as sort of a grand conclusion for the James Bond story and character as a whole, and that's something I wasn't necessarily expecting this film to do. And as you can see by my channel name, I have 007 in it, and if you didn't know what that's from James Bond. So I'm a huge Bond fan. I haven't actually done many Bond-related videos for some reason. I've watched Bond since I was 3 years old, watching Sean Connery and Roger Moore's films on TV. And when Daniel Craig's era of the franchise begun, I didn't watch Casino Royale till I was older. Skyfall was really the one that made me fall in love with the franchise a lot. And Casino Royale and Skyfall, I love. Quantum of Solace, I think's not great. And Spectre, I think, was actually fairly underrated. I actually think that's a really good Bond movie, and it all leads to No Time to Die. This is the first Bond series where every film is developed on the character and developed on the story from first to last. And that's something that none of the other ones did. All of them other ones were standalone. The character never necessarily developed into someone unique. Maybe except on Her Majesty's Secret Service and some of the films from Timothy Dalton, did the films ever really explore the Bond character in more of a deep way. But as soon as we got to Casino Royale, the franchise was changed and it was shifted. And going from Casino Royale to No Time to Die, this character's been fully fleshed out, and it's just amazing to see how far we've come to actually see a very grounded, emotionally vulnerable James Bond character. And I think Daniel Craig, especially with this film, has cemented himself as not only having my favorite era of the franchise, but also being my favorite James Bond ever. No, he doesn't have the class of Sean Connery, the humor of Roger Moore, the edginess of Timothy Dalton, or Pierce Brosnan didn't bring much to the role anyway, even though I still liked him as Bond. But Daniel Craig brings everything together, and he makes the best performance out of the character we've ever seen. That's also very true, I believe, to Ian Fleming's original novels about the character. And No Time to Die basically brings that together. Bear in mind, I did see this film about a week ago. I've just started university, I'm studying film, so I haven't been able to do as many reviews. I'll probably do one once a week for some big movies such as Dune or etc. But I will not be doing those movie reviews as often, but I'll try and do one around every week or so. If there's any new movies that I want to talk about. So I'll still be doing them, and I will still be doing reviews. If I do miss any, I'll still be doing them on letterboxd, an app, so you can check that out down below. It's a great app for reviewing movies on and rating movies. And but in terms of YouTube ones, I will be doing a lot less than I usually do. Maybe just one every few weeks or so ever.
Name?
Bond. James Bond.
Let's get on with the review anyway. Again, no spoilers for No Time to Die in this video. Let's get on with how I thought the movie, and I thought the movie was amazing. No Time to Die is an incredible Bond film. We haven't got Sam Mendes returning from Skyfall and Spectre, which he did a really good job directing those two movies. So bringing on a new director for No Time to Die was something that I was sort of cautious about, but as soon as I saw the movie, everything blew out because the opening scene was incredible. Because this movie opens up with one of the best Bond openings I've ever seen. We have this full half an hour before the opening song even takes place. And by the way, I really like the opening song by Billie Eilish. She did a really good job with the song. It's a very emotionally powerful song. It's not quite as powerful as Skyfall's song, but I do really like this song. And also, you love the use of the music here. The musical score by Hans Zimmer is amazing. He has some great iterations of the Bond theme, and I love how they intertwined sort of music from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a very underrated Bond film. And I liked how they referenced that film quite a lot as well. Being sort of the Bond film was the first one to sort of change up the formula and actually develop the character, and this movie has a lot of references to that, and I think it sort of acts as a big movie to reference all the other movies in the Bond franchise for this big finale, but it also is kind of like a Bond film we've never seen before. It's more intense, it's way more action-packed, and surprisingly, it's also way more intimate. Yes, this film is at a much larger scale than any Bond film we've seen before, another big Destroy the World plot. It has a similar narrative to the other Bond films we've seen before in terms of the original films, the classics. It has a similar story to those, but it still has the intimacy and the suspense and the grounded feeling that the more modern Bond films had, and it definitely fits the tone of the Daniel Craig era, but gives us a story that's kind of more classical and cheesy than what we had before. A lot of the dialogue is really nicely placed. There's some great humor in there that I really like, some very classical Bond moments. But there's also scenes in this movie, like the opening scene, which are like we've never seen a Bond film before. The opening especially felt like a horror movie. It was amazing, and I thought everything in the first act of this movie was incredible. It was the best Bond I'd seen yet, and the finale as well was amazing. Not quite as good as Skyfall's finale, but was a fantastic finale nevertheless. It really had a lot of blood pumping action sequences, one long take on a staircase that was really thrilling, some great humor intertwined, and some really emotional moments that tied together the character really nicely. And I thought Daniel Craig's performance was the best we've ever seen in a Bond film yet. I also loved the story surrounding Madeleine Swan that's introduced and her relationship to Bond. I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but that I thought was done really interestingly. And then we have Rami Malek's villain, which I thought was good. He was a good villain, he was a good performance, but I wanted a great Bond villain for the final film. I just expected more out of him, and he was just very basic. But he's a lot better than majority of the Bond villains. But compared to Silver or the Sheaf, he's definitely not on that level. He was sort of disappointing. He's not a weak aspect of the movie at all. He's completely fine. He serves his narrative purpose, but he's not my favorite Bond villain at all. And that's my only little qualm with the movie. Actually, everything else about the film, I thought was honestly perfection. I had no issues with anything else throughout the movie except the villain. But again, the villain was still good. It was not like the villain was terrible. He was still fine. But it's the one thing that I can sort of grasp onto and say that could have been done better. But the rest of it, the action sequences are all fantastic. The direction of them is really great. There's some really extravagant shots. The way shots move is very smooth, and it really feels like an epic film in terms of the action, but the weight underneath the action is actually very intimate. And it's a lot more emotional than you'd expect any other Bond film to be. It doesn't quite have the swift writing of Casino Royale, and it doesn't have the mind blowing cinematography of Skyfall, but what it does have is pure emotion and emotional weight that really arcs the character together in a beautiful way. And without spoiling the ending, I can say it was a perfect way to say goodbye to the James Bond character and sort of leave it cemented now. I think it was a good place to leave it. If they do end up recasting the character in the future, I wouldn't mind. But honestly, I'll be fine if this was the last Bond movie I ever saw, because it really did make it feel conclusive. This is sort of the end game of the Bond franchise, and I loved it. And if they do reboot it in the future, I don't know how they're gonna get a better Bond than Daniel Craig. Um, but we never know. I'm happy with this being the last one, but I'm happy that Daniel Craig actually got a great arc for Bond from Casino Royale to No Time to Die. And No Time to Die as its own action movie is also just great. There is a sequence in the middle that I thought was fantastic. There's a lot of intense moments that are great. As I said, the villain isn't ultimately perfect, and there's some pacing towards the middle that does have a few shortcomings here and there. Um, but overall, I thought the movie, for its length, for 2 hours and 43 minutes, even with that long runtime, I thought it was paced exceptionally well, and as an action film, it kept suspense moving. The action sequences were glorious, as I've already said. There are scenes here we've never seen in a Bond film before. There are elements brought back from the classic movies that we haven't seen implemented into Daniel Craig's era, and there is a heft of emotion that I did not expect. I really was not expecting to be tearing up and crying at the end of a Bond movie. But here we are. It just shows how far the franchise and the characters come over this last era, and I'm glad that this film really paid it off. And yeah, it was worth the wait. After 2 years of waiting for this movie, it was worth it. This was an incredible cinema experience. It's an incredible Bond film. If you're a Bond fan, if you're a movie fan, watch it. Watch it at the cinema. Do not watch this at home. Go out and watch this at the cinema, unless you're ill or anything. Of course not. But you know, if you're a fan of good movies, if you're a fan of good action movies, just watch this at the cinema. Because as a Bond film, this is everything I could have wanted and a little bit more. I'm just so happy right now. As a Bond fan, my whole life, this was so satisfying for me, and I'm happy that the Bond franchise was actually able to have a fantastic final film. And yeah, this movie really made me happy, and It was a Bond film like no other, but at the same time, it was kind of like all of them meshed into one. Overall, I'm going to give No Time to Die an A. I'm also going to give this movie a 96%. Let me know what you thought of No Time to Die in the comments down below. And of course, thanks for watching, and go get a martini. Shaken, not stirred.